Okay, so we made it to the third book that I finished just yesterday, and I'm quite surprised. This is a bit of a different approach to what he does usually, and but I would say it's a very welcomed addition to the series. When I went on Goodreads, I found a lot of people saying that the publisher rushed Carlos to finish this like on time, and that's why it's like much smaller than his other books, and that's why it doesn't punch the same way. But I tend to disagree. Now, I don't know if the dispute with the publisher on the timeline, on the deadline, and that's why this book is what it is. I don't know if any of that is true, but I still think this was a very solid addition to the series. To be honest, I enjoyed it. Now, it's going to be very hard to talk about this book without spoilers. So, to be honest with you, I mean, look, it's a very small book. I recommend you go ahead and read it and then come back to this review and let's carry on with all of the spoilers this time because it's just not going to work without the spoilers. And partially that's because in book one, in book two, you have a bunch of mysteries that are like have a loose end, right? We don't have a proper conclusion that we feel confident about. So, therefore, this book tries to address some of those loose ends, and I think it does a very good job at it. And um, a lot of people online were saying it doesn't do a great job at it, and then some people were saying if you didn't like this one, then don't worry, just read the fourth one. The fourth book just explains everything. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to know everything because that would spoil some of the fun of magical realism, where it's like the magic is there, but it's kind of hidden and obscured. I do want to know a lot more. Yes, I want to learn, but I don't want to learn every single detail because it's fun for the reader to be left to speculate and come up with theories, which is definitely what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a bunch of content around the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, this series, and we're going to get into some of those theories later after I'm done with the fourth book. So in this one, we're following a very important character from the first book. Two very important characters. We're following Fermin, and we're following Daniel Semper, and so here really the book starts with Daniel yet again going down another rabbit hole of pursuing this person, and this person is very mysterious. He just came into the shop and he gifted Fermin a book, and then Daniel was like, who is this? Nobody remembers Fermin anymore. His previous life is over. How is this even happening? So he starts following around and realizing this person, there's much more to the story than it seems. And that's where we also at the same time get into some of his somewhat relationship issues that Daniel is having. So Daniel finds out that his wife has received a letter from her ex-fiance, and the ex-fiance is asking for them to meet up at a hotel somewhere to try to, I don't know, to try to get back together or something. Now, Daniel and Fermin have, like, they trust Bay that she wouldn't do this, but then but then Daniel has some doubts, because again, at the end of the day, you're human, you never know, and it just, I felt that is the only thing within the story that kind of pissed me off, because I feel like it's such a cheap way to make somebody care about, because I felt kind of like a cheap way of doing it. Like the entire book, you're just sitting there and you're trying to find out, and you're trying to see if, does Bay end up cheating on Daniel, and is that how this is going to end after all the things they went through in the first book? Is this really the approach you want to go in the second, in a follow up to that? And thankfully, let's just settle this right now. Bay ends up not cheating on Daniel. It was Daniel's, kind of like, so Daniel's detective brain that was like thinking of a million things differently that could happen. Thankfully, that doesn't happen. That part was so annoying. It's so many times my heart was like pumping, and I was like, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? Oh my god, it's happening. And then you find out, no, it's not. And that kind of pissed me off. Now, what I didn't like it. He did it very well. As you could see, I was very like dedicated, and I want to know what's gonna happen. I want to know if she's gonna be faithful or not, and fucking got me. She was faithful. She was good. All good. Let's put that on the side. Majority of the story is really Fairman's story. Fairman's story in prison, and in prison, Fairman meets our boy, the best protagonist of the series so far, David Martin from the second book, The Angel's Game. So he meets up with David basically in prison. It turns out Fairman and David knew each other. It turns out both of them are imprisoned in this space. And here's where the unique stuff starts happening. The story hints very heavily that everything that happened to David Martin is not real. They're trying to hint to you that David Martin is a mentally ill individual who's seeing things. He was seeing the publisher Corelli. He was seeing different scenarios play out in front of him. He did not, like, those things are not happening according to this perspectives, because this perspective is Fairman's perspective in specific. Now, I don't know if I believe that. I think I don't believe that, to be honest with you, but it does explain a lot, which we saw in book 2, and there were certain like loose ends that just like made no sense. And the fact that David Martin could be mentally ill and could be somebody who's hallucinating a lot and seeing things and talking to people, that would explain a lot of what happened in the second book, especially the end part, especially Corelli. So I don't know if I actually believe that. I would like to not believe that. I would like to think Corelli is a real person. And but besides that, yet again, we see somebody trying to take advantage of David's superior writing skills by this guy named Valls, who's like the president of the prison. He's trying to forward his career in the literary world, even though he's like the head of a prison basically. So he's tasked David with writing a book for him. All right, and yet again, yes, I know, no, like I don't know when this guy's gonna get arrested. Everybody just wants him to write a book in somebody else's name. What is happening with David? So this Val's guy is a very scummy asshole of a character that's trying to further his career, and he will do anything possible to get there, to further his career. Now, by the end of the part of the book where Fairman has been describing all that happened in the prison, we do discover that Val's possibly poisoned Daniel's mother, Isabella. You guys know Isabella from the second book. She's an awesome character. I love her. The poisoning even makes me hate Val's even more. But the thing is, we're not quite sure if it was actual poisoning. And that's because the story goes that Isabella gets invited by Val's to this like cafe somewhere, and that's mainly because to discuss David's release terms or like to negotiate something. And Val's, being the scummy bastard he is, he's trying to get with her. She's like, I'm not interested. But there was tea on the table, and it is implied in the story that one of the tea that she drank was poisoned, and that poison killed her within a period of 1 week. Now, the initial story was that she died because she got sick from a disease. I forgot what the disease was back then. Was it cholera? I don't know. So, yeah, so this book really questions what happened to Isabella. And Daniel suddenly starts changing his character a lot, because he goes from being just curious and he wants to get to the bottom of things, he wants to learn the truth, to becoming very angry and trying to see if he can get back to Val's and do to him what he did to his mother. Even though none of the people in the book are actually confident that this actually happened to Isabella, but that's what the rumor is saying. That's what in prison Fairman kind of figured out, and that's what they think it happened. Now, the other thing that we didn't quite understand is that did David Martin even escape the prison? Because it wasn't very clear to me. I kind of, at the part of the book where the escape of the prison was happening, I kind of couldn't figure out how they escaped. I know they jumped into a ditch full of dead people, like a mountain of dead people. That was pretty disturbing. But like before that, I didn't quite understand what happened visually with David Martin. Did he get away? Did he not? Now, the truth is, if you've read The Angel's Game, you would know that yes, David Martin clearly got away, because he's like somewhere on like a sea town, and then Corelli approaches him with the hand of a clone version of Christina, which is insane. Now I was expecting that to be explained in this book, or anything about Corelli to be explained in this book, but it was not. And I just don't understand why Corelli had the change of heart that he had, and I want to understand why that happened. So I'm expecting the fourth book kind of answers all of those questions that I have, hopefully. But beside that, I just want to say a couple of more things about the book before we wrap it up. The writing style is very interesting. The reason it's interesting, for example, look at this. There's this chapter, right? And then when you flip one page over, the chapter has ended. It is a very short, punchy style of writing where every chapter is 2 to 3 pages, not more. I think there was maybe only one chapter in the whole book that was like 4 pages. It was very unique. I didn't think he could build up the story as well as he did with the amount of punchy short chapters that he had here. But honestly, after reading The Angel's Game and The Shadow of the Wind, I think this is a great way to follow it up. We did need something smaller that's more of a refreshing, like a refreshment plus provide some of the plot points of what's been happening, and I feel like this did a great job, excellent job. I still enjoyed this book very much. I'm still going to give it 5 out of 5, just like every other book in the series. But if I had to classify them on like a list of best to worst so far, it would be Angel's Game is number 1. I think this is number 2, and then you have Shadow of the Wind, number 3. Now, all of these are still 5 out of 5 books for me. They're still like my favorite books this year, all these 3. But if I have to pick by how much I like them, yeah, Angel's Game was just like the best of the best, super underrated. It doesn't get much love at all. This one I enjoyed because of the punchy, quick style, so that's why it goes number 2. And Shadow of the Wind, it just feels like a nice classic, like, you know what I mean? It's like the original where all of this universe kind of came out from. So, looking forward for the last book. I heard the last book is gigantic, like 800 pages. I'm getting into it very soon. I want to finish off this whole series, and then there's this one tiny short story book at the end called City of Mist. I also want to finish because it says that it's related to this world. So once I'm done with all of those, I'm going to do like a deep dive video on the world of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good one.